Heyo, welcome everyone to episode 49 of Today in the Scene. I'm Joe with Indie Arcade Wave, and we're back after taking a week off. Just took a week off, had some cancellations, and we got everything moved forward. So we will be back every week from here on out, and we are coming up on our 1 year too, which super excited about that. But this week we're going to be talking to Jordan, who's the owner of Dangerzone Arcade. Jordan has been a huge supporter of the indie scene. I think he owns just about every indie game, and the ones that he doesn't have are coming soon. We spoke with him on episode 22, and I just want to welcome Jordan back. How are you doing today, Jordan?
I'm doing outstanding. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I do really appreciate you coming back on here, and I'm glad you reached out to me and let me know about the new game you've got coming, which should have them on the show pretty soon here. They've been working through stuff like you said, we both spoke about this beforehand, but Adam's been working for 6 months now to get everything figured out, and it's getting pretty close to being finalized. So I just want you to reintroduce yourself, Jordan, kind of let everybody know who you are, what you do. It's been a long time since you've been on here, so feel free to just kind of give us a background on you.
Yeah, sure. So obviously, owner and proprietor of Dangerzone Arcade out in Gilbert, Arizona. This has been just a enthusiast-driven hobby for me. As far as like my career goes, I'm a officer in the Army Reserves, and then I do cybersecurity for a large bank here in Arizona. So when this as a business is just purely for the love of the hobby. So I'm just, I guess you could say, just an enthusiast with that decided I'm going to open my own barcade, and then subsequently the money pit began. So it's been a very, very fun journey. But yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I know you reached out to us quite early in the Danger Zone, I guess, saga
Yeah.
with to get a Galactic Battleground. I know you had what was it, Killer Queen, Galactic Battleground, and Death Ball were like your first
Cosmetron.
three. Cosmotrons, that's right, Cosmotrons.
Yeah.
Death Ball came after that.
Yeah. I wanted to, well, one, when I started this venture, as far as like I'm going to have a barcade, I knew Killer Queen would be the flagship because that was like the main that was the arcade that drove me towards this. Is that I loved playing Killer Queen, and there wasn't a cabinet that was relatively close to where I live, so I always had to drive a very very long a long distance to actually just go play Killer Queen. And so that was like, all right, I'm tired of doing that. I want to play Killer Queen with my friends, and I'm tired of driving so far. So I'm going to start my own barcade. Is like, and the first thing was like, all right, I want Killer Queen. So once I finally got that, I did like the doing that hunt to get Killer Queen made me discover the actual indie arcade community. And then, being a product of the 80s, was like, wow, these games. I mean, again, like I would say Killer Queen is very retro too. I was like, wow, Cosmotrons, this is awesome. It's like Lunar Lantern and Asteroids had a baby, but it's now a battle royale version. And then that was when I also discovered, after talking to Shane at Cosmotrons, was that he's like, hey, you should check out these guys too. And then one, indie arcade, creator such as yourself led to another. Then it was like, that's how I met Tony with Death Ball. Then Philip over at Griffin Aerotech for Sky Cursor and Enter the Gungeon. So that grew, and then I was like, that's going to be my niche. Is that I'm going to have all indie arcades.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly how we found it too. Was we found about Killer Queen. We didn't even plan on making Galactic Battleground on the arcade until we found out about Killer Queen, and it all grew from there. And it seems like everybody in the hobby or people that are building games kind of found about Killer Queen first. So I guess just kind of give us the story. I know you briefly touched on it about like wanting to play Killer Queen. How did you first find Killer Queen? Like where was it, and what did you really fall in love with that you really loved about Killer Queen?
So my sister, my older sister, she lives in Seattle, and she came down to Arizona to visit. And this was, I want to say maybe 2017. And anyway, she came down to visit, and as you know, in Seattle, there's a lot of arcades, and places to play, pinball and retro gaming and everything. And so she knew about Killer Queen from the various places like the Icebox, Jupiter, up there in downtown Seattle. And so she went on Bumblebear, their website, where they have the Killer Queen map. And so she found one at the Grid, which is a real small kind of arcade dive bar in Mesa. So that was the one I was going to. So she said, we should go play this game. Jordan, you're totally going to love it. She remembered playing, Atari Joust with me, when we were kids. And so she introduced the game to me. And then once I got there, and then everybody was drinking, the camaraderie, and obviously being a military guy. So I'm instantly all in when everyone's having a good time. And then there's strategic team-based, combat essentially happening. So we could, war game. And I was like, all right, you're gonna be the queen. All right, you go for berries. I'll go military. Oh, watch that snail. It's just such a very competitive, fast-paced game that I was just instantly in love with it.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be kind of what everybody gets into, is that competitive side, the team side. And the biggest thing with all these indies is that you're playing the game elbow to elbow with people. There's so many games now that we play, and it's not personal, like you're not with that person. But Killer Queen, like, this community has exploded, and all of these people are so cool that we've met, and it's been so much fun to go to. Like, going to tournaments is awesome. If you ever get a chance and you're a Killer Queen player and you can go to a tournament, go, because they're super fun. I guess get into the story of Danger Zone. So we know you fell in love with Killer Queen. You got a Killer Queen just to play with your friends, so that you didn't have to drive an hour every single time. And then you started to find these other games, and you were like, I'm going to turn this into a business. How did that go? And what was kind of your first location that you went to?
Yeah, so my first location was the Ironwood Pub and Grub. And again, I knew it was a stepping stone going into it. All right, it was like, basic project management. You got to form, storm, norm, and perform. So I was like, all right, I'm going to form, and this is going to be some storming going on in this place, because it was a dive bar, it was a cowboy bar, and it was a biker bar. So, but they had an open space that was essentially unoccupied, and they were financially hurting. And so the proposition was, let me use the space, try to bring in new clientele, potentially expand, the patronage at your location, and maybe bring in some more family-friendly people, younger crowd, and, maybe the people that would spend more money and cause less problems. But I learned a lot of hard lessons there, is that, sometimes not every business owner is a good business owner, and there's a difference between running a bar as a legitimate business versus like running a bar because you like to get drunk with your friends. And then also, if there are people, especially in the bar industry, some of the locals, they literally live there, and they feel more entitled to the space than potentially you are, even if you are a partner of that now establishment. So there was a lot of animosity and strife and struggle between the people that want to go in the arcade room and set up cornhole tables indoors, which is ridiculous to me, and push out the people that would be playing our game. So there was always this tug of war and strife with people wanting to play the pinballs in the arcades versus the locals that was their place. And us hipsters and youngsters were encroaching on where they live, essentially from 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. And it caused a lot of problems, and ultimately scared away a lot of people that wanted to come and play the games.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's perfectly understandable. There's always that local dive bar. And I know when Kelly and I go to conventions, we always look for it. We always want to check it out because they're fun. You get to meet some really interesting locals. Yeah. But you've told me a story, and you told us the last time on episode 22, what happened when the world shut down. And this dive bar that you were in was in a pretty sketchy spot. So I want you to tell that story as to what went down there.
So other places, now, again, Arizona wasn't the first to shut down. But the writing was on the wall, because first it was like, okay, everybody had to do, different sanitation, they updated sanitation standards. And then eventually it was, all right, all bars are closed, but if you're a restaurant, you can stay open. So there was like a 3 week process for like, okay, something's going down. This isn't looking good. And again, I already knew that this place was bouncing, paychecks for their employees. And so the second the bar had to close, but it can only do takeout. Um, I immediately, like 2 days after that, like I talked to the owners and I got a bunch of my friends. We immediately went in there and pulled all of our games out. And also, I knew that the landlords that actually owned the property, the commercial space itself, were not too fond of that establishment and the people because they were trying to really, they just built an LA Fitness, a Starbucks. They were really trying to spruce up that area, and that was like the last, the last business standing of a 20-year-old dynasty from back when where I live in Santan Valley used to just be the farmlands.
They were lingering. They were the last ones there.
Yeah, the last one. So I came in, got all my stuff, and again, we didn't end on bad terms, but it's just like, hey, I'm going to be bringing all these things, to my house so I can play them. And then within the following day or two after me getting all their stuff, the landlord actually put the chains and locked the doors, and so they were completely shut out of their business. And there was a few other people like me that were, you could say, amusement providers that had a pool table, jukebox, the boxing game, mechanical bull. All of their equipment got locked up with that, and the landlords held on to it and had to go into litigation because they're like, no, we're taking ownership because these people owe us money. So I was like, within 24 hours, or within that time frame of almost being in that situation. So I read the writing on the wall and I pulled everything out.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you got out of something that could have been really dicey. And I mean, those games sitting in there, that could really hurt the business. I mean, you potentially could have gone under if it was just sitting. You needed to make some money from it. So after that happened, I know you did a couple things. You'd rent them out privately and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of tell us how you moved from that situation that was very unfortunate, but you were lucky enough to figure it out and be attentive enough to get out, to now where you're back at it. The momentum's coming back.
Yeah. So obviously from basically March to January of this year, I rented out my machines, and mostly because you remember when I had only just started, we were only open for 4 months before the shutdown happened. So, and I had already strategically, especially with all my arcades, as they're not mass produced. So Death Ball's mass produced. Same thing with Sky Cursor, or Switch and Shoot. So I had them all a lot. I'd already bought in for a lot of these arcades, just were waiting for them to get produced. So I still had like every month a new machine coming in. And the same thing with, Stern, they put out, basically a pinball every 3 to 4 months. So my plan was like, all right, I'm going to keep growing the inventory because I'm not giving up on this just yet. And I had already committed, funding to certain games and certain people for the next 6 months. In the meantime, I will start renting out some of the arcades and the pins. The pins went really, really well. Because I could easily get them in the back of my Forerunner. And if I planned my route good enough, and again, it was all my friends that I knew just from the pinball community. So it was people I did trust. I could make it to where I spend a morning delivering pins for, that are going to be out in the field for the next month and, make a pretty good, return on investment. Same thing with the arcades. There'd be a longer rent because I had to get the trailer out. And then Starfighters in Mason never actually closed. So then I brought a bunch of indie games like Battlestar or Galactic Battlegrounds and Cosmotron's a Killer Queen there that they would get used and that they could still be promoting the indie community. And then eventually, when I get my own place, all the fans that now were created while at Starfighters, they would go to my location. So that was the plan during COVID.
So where are you at now? Now that from what I've seen, I've been following you on Instagram and everything, and it seems like they're all at a new location. You got
Yeah.
everything moved over, and you're starting to have events. So walk me through that process of like kind of bringing all the inventory back in, moving it to where you are now, and getting to the point you are. I mean, what, a couple of days ago you ran a tournament or something?
Yeah. Yeah. So I had reached out. So there's a very popular brewery and chain of restaurants and bars here in Arizona, Uncle Bear's Brewery. And so I had reached out to them before COVID. And again, I reached out to several breweries, when I was looking for my first location. And again, Arizona, I like to say we're a little bit behind the curve when it comes to culture and what's trendy and popular. So pre-COVID, a lot of these businesses were, yeah, we're good. We got people coming in and drinking beer. We don't need to fix what's not broken. So post-COVID, as things are starting to open back up, I was like, let me hit up some of these people that I had spoken to but previously and see where they're at. And so I reached out to the Uncle Bear's Brewery, where they actually make their beer, their tap room, because again, another location that has a wide open space that could potentially work as far as being an arcade. And after talking to the general manager there, he was on board. He's like, yeah, absolutely. We, just like every other establishment, haven't had people in here in almost a year, and we want to come back bigger and better than before. And if we can bring new people here, that's only going to be, advantageous to them. And also it may happen in a quicker manner. Obviously they want to get the bar full as possible, as quick as possible. Yeah, so that was, and they were only 20 minutes down the road from where I live. So that's obviously very important since I'm doing all the maintenance myself. But yeah, so they first, we started off with just a few pins just to see, again, like there's always a hesitation for space. If you're in a restaurant or a bar owner, it's profit per square foot. So you have to do that equation when, how much real estate, should I lend this person for this game when, a high top table will make money because people will be sitting and drinking, or a pool table, or unfortunately cornhole. Again, it seems like no matter where I go, I always have to share space with cornhole. Like they are my nemesises in this adventure, which is, again, they take a large real estate. So we started off with a few pins because, again, a lot of my arcades were still at Starfighters, and some of my other pins were out, still at people's houses. So we did a soft launch in January, just a small corner, a few pins, and a change machine, so they can see the new people that start showing up. Because then, we updated the pin maps and all the different various apps, and so now a lot of the people that would normally go to, do the drive to some of the other arcades that started opening back up, they started going there. So now they're getting new faces that they would have never come to that brewery or tap room before, and now they're hanging out like every single day. So it was like a proof of concept January, and it went really, really well. And we only had like 4 pinball machines. And then February rolled around. I was like, okay, cool. Let me bring in now 6 pinball machines. Let me bring in Cosmotrons, Death Ball, Sky Cursor, and Battlegrounds. And we're going to use up now some more space. Clear out some tables, move some cornhole boards, and let me show you what this can do with the proper marketing and advertisements. And then we doubled our collections, and they doubled their money too. So every month, starting at January, they're seeing double revenue and patronage at a brewery that even pre-COVID, they didn't have to have. It was never that busy. They could always get away with a pretty ghost staff as far as working the bar and the food truck. And then March rolled around. I was like, okay, let me dump. Again, the trends keep rising, and as we're growing the inventory, as word is spreading, I'm doing more marketing. Also, Arizona is getting vaccinated, and more. It's open. The state is opening up more. So March brought the whole inventory in. So then now we got Killer Queen, which I have an interesting observation, which we'll talk about when it comes to Killer Queen and some of the arcades versus the pinball and this whole post-COVID world we're in. So then March again, it was the same thing. People are now hanging out. People are now bringing their families, which was new. New to them. And now they're having to play catch up with staff because of how busy and popular the place is now getting. Which again, it's a good problem to have. And they are so on board with the vision that they're now like making infrastructure improvements. Like, all right, we're going to add a sound system. We're going to change the lighting in the back. So they are completely. I could not have asked for better partners in this arrangement. So it's been great. And then in April, it's like now we're going to start tournaments. So we did our first pinball tournament in April, and basically there was 40 people hanging out and drinking unfortunately went on for 7 hours. I forgot to turn off extra balls. So the tournament was a huge success, but again, it just kept growing. It's the same thing. So, since January up through now, we basically beat two weeks. By mid-month, we end up beating as far as revenue goes the previous month. So, again, numbers don't lie. They keep trending up. And not only is it what I'm seeing from my perspective, which is just collections, it's the same thing that they're seeing as far as what the bar is making. So it is going in the right, it's going up and it's getting more popular. And then now in May, we're doing 3 tournaments, and then June, we're going to start doing 4 tournaments. And I think that's where we'll probably cap out at, because also I can't stretch myself too thin because I do have other jobs and obligations.
Yeah, I mean that sounds awesome that we're seeing it grow. And I know before everything happened and everything got shut down, the indie scene was growing. It seemed to be doing really well. We were getting more people reaching out to us, more games were coming out constantly, and it all just came to a screeching halt. So It's really good to hear that down there, this brewery is brought you in, is happy to have you there, and it's just constantly growing for you. And tournaments are everything. Like Killer Queen is so big because of the tournaments, because of the community. So having that growth is fantastic. So I guess give us kind of a loop.
So let me jump in when it comes to like the tournament and Killer Queen. What's strange is that, and again, this is anecdotal, so you're throwing that waiver out there, but what I noticed is that the arcade community has not quite come out of quarantine yet, which is interesting because, the pinball enthusiasts usually is of the older demographic. And, for them, they're like, we'll mask up and go out, we'll do the hand sanitizer, throw our mask on, we'll go out and have a good time, with not much concern, which is the opposite, because again, with the older community, as far as like COVID guidelines, CDC guidelines and everything, they should be more concerned, whereas the younger community, which tends to be, like the Killer Queen community, with all the indie arcades, they're still somewhat in lockdown. So, there's more people playing the pins than there are the arcades. And, and obviously, like, I'm in touch with a lot of these communities, but a lot of them are still waiting until, like, I'm not coming to a Killer Queen tournament or happy hour or league night until, 100% Arizona is vaccinated or whatever the case may be. So it was an interesting observation on the different demographics and how they're treating COVID and what has to happen before they're comfortable actually coming back out.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like as you mentioned, it's an older demographic, and maybe they've seen things come and go. This too shall pass. Is kind of their view, and a year is a long time. So like, they're ready. They're ready to just get out and play some pins again, because not all of them have them at home. Not all of them were able to rent them. So run us through kind of what you guys have in your inventory. I know you guys you've gotten a lot of games since everything shut down, and you still have games flowing in. So let us know what you've got.
Yeah. So speaking just to the arcades, so obviously Killer Queen, we've got Galactic Battlegrounds, we've got Cosmotrons, we have Switch and Shoot, we've got Death Ball and Sky Cursor, and then I just got the Atari Pong cocktail table. I don't know if you ever played that game.
That thing is sweet. Yeah, I played it
so cool. Yeah, it's all
like 2
magnets.
years ago. Yeah, at a convention in Milwaukee. They had it like 2018.
Yeah, that one's really fun. Because again, yeah, we'll get back to that. So, and then I have a Pac-Man Battle Royale, another 4-player cocktail game, and because I wanted to try to because obviously I don't know what the formula is, but in my gut it tells me okay, 5 pins won't bring out a big pinball community, but 10 to 15 will. But then you get to that certain point where okay, 20 to 30 pins is not going to get you anyone new. Like the people that are into pinball, they're going to be there no matter what because you got the most and the best. And definitely when I get all limited edition pins, so I definitely have the best pins here in the Valley. So again, so it's all right, well, I feel I have 10 pins now and I'm going to keep rotating them out with all the newer latest release. So then how do I get a new crowd or somebody that may normally just be sitting at the bar? How do we get them to walk over into the game area? And that's when I was all right, let me do the Pac-Man Battle Royale because everybody knows what Pac-Man is. It's not as intimidating as the indie arcades. And then the Pong one too, because everybody, they see the Atari logo, they see Pong, and they instantly know how to play. Because I know we mentioned last time we were talking is that even in some of these, we've hosted a lot of events. Like one time we had this youth hockey league show up, and there was 60 people, all these kids, hockey kids and their families, and they didn't know what Cosmotrons or Battlegrounds. A lot of these games they didn't understand, especially Killer Queen, what it was. But once I make that effort, it's oh, let me show you what this game is, and they just give them a 30-second tutorial. Then they're playing all night long and can't get enough of it. So I wanted to mix it up to where we need that gateway game, the gateway drug of Pac-Man and Pong, and then oh, well, I'm already in here and already I have a stack of quarters, so what is this Switch and Shoot? Let's check out this this Killer Queen or Cosmotrons. And then as far as games on the way, so I just got Retro Raccoons now that they are ready for purchasing through their new partnership. And so that should be showing up mid-June. And then same thing, we're going to be doing I bought a limited edition Mandalorian pin, the latest Cornerstone release from Stern. That's going to be showing up in June. So we're hoping to do a dual launch party for both of the games. So very excited for Retro Raccoons. Like you said, we've been following him for a while. I have a deal worked out with the next title from DSM Arcade, creators of Switch and Shoot. Although I can't talk about what the game is, so that's up to them. There's a lot of rules around that, but very excited.
I've been poking at Dan for a while to give me a hint. He can't say anything. I'm just give it up. I need a little bit.
Yep, it's going to be awesome. That's all I can say. It is going to be awesome. I am excited, and I can't wait to get it. It's going to do really good on location. And then also same thing with Griffin Aerotech. I've got a deal worked out with them to get one of the first runs of Enter the Gungeon, House of the Gundead. So timeline for that one, hopefully August. I know he said late summer, so I'm hoping maybe late June, early August. But as when you're part of the indie community and you don't have a juggernaut manufacturing line like Raw Thrills, timetables are very negotiable.
They're flexible. They're very flexible. I totally feel you on that, and that's an awesome bunch of games, and you got more coming in. I love Switch and Shoot. I've actually wasn't a huge fan of it when I first played it, and then I talked to the creator, Matt Glanville, interviewed him on the channel, and he sent me a key, and I think I've probably put 20 hours into that game, and it's such a simple one-player game. And then obviously Enter the Gungeon. I'm super excited about that one. Been following that for, I mean, they announced that in like 2019,
Yeah.
and they're just starting to get it moving again. If you haven't played Enter the Gungeon, you need to go get that on Steam. It's super fun. It's on Xbox too, I believe.
Yeah, it's on all of them. Yeah, I have played on PlayStation.
Gotcha. Yeah, so check that out if you haven't. So we've talked about kind of everything you're doing, all the games you have, the pins you have. I guess I don't think I ever really asked you about your gaming history. Like, when did you get into it? What were some of your earliest memories, and like, what was it that kept you going through all the different generations of games?
It's funny you mention that because my kids are bored with when I'm 38. I was born in '83. Like back in those days, your parents may or may not even give you money, but they would drop you off at the arcade. Like that was the daycare of its time. Like
Just go hang out, look at the flashing lights. We'll give you a couple bucks.
Yeah, here's $5. I have to go work my shift. Please be here and alive in 10 hours. When I come back. And by the way, like there's no phones. There's you have no idea what even time it is. But so just like okay, I'm gonna be here in this building with all these games and until my parents show up to collect me. So so that was I grew up in that generation. And then also my dad, he was really big, not into video games, but like very old school. So he had the Vectrex, he had the ColecoVision, the Atari, and so we had all those games growing up. And then obviously once the Nintendo came out, it was game over. I mean that was it for me. I did get my first introduction to pinball was this guy just wanted to get rid of it out of his garage, and so it was Genie, so an old 70s electro EM pinball machine, but I didn't know what to do. I mean, I was a kid. I was like, I think my dad helped me move into the backyard, but I must have been 8, so I had no idea how to maintain it, and it just sat in our patio until the elements of time and nature took it over. But I'd loved arcades. My dad, we had a pin and Star Castle, stand-up arcade in our backyard. And then obviously always just going to the arcades. But then, throughout the majority of my youth, then went into obviously console gaming and PC gaming. And then it wasn't until, the whole arcade scene started making a comeback. But even still, there was always the Dave and Buster's out here. There was GameWorks, like a lot of the Redemption games. Those really never really did it for me.
Yeah, the FECs.
Yeah. Eloquently said. Yeah. So, and then it wasn't until like the whole retro arcade started to make come. I was like, okay, cool. Like, now let's get rid of the big, silly, alien shooter, whatever Roth Hills has to offer. And now there's a Star Castle, a Lunar Lander, the old school Mortal Kombat. And then that was when it's like start getting back into it. And then I attended, so I was already starting getting back into the scene and, playing Killer Queen at Grid and whatnot. And then I attended Zapcom, which is a huge pinball convention out here in Arizona.
Is that one in Phoenix?
No, that's the Game On Expo. So there was two big ones. The Game On Expo in Phoenix, and then there was Zapcom, which was in Mesa. And then when I walked in, there was all the arcade games, tons of pins, and it was just like that feeling. It was like, oh my God, like I remember all this. This is amazing. There's not, one ticket redemption game here. And again, I was actually the Grid had lent Zapcom their Killer Queen cabinets for or no, it was bonus round. That's right. It was bonus round that there was for a Killer Queen tournament that I was able to jump in on. So that was what really kick-started it. And then it was like, all right, now I'm going back and forth to the Grid, doing that drive. And again, I love the Grid. Nothing wrong about them. Just where I live, you guys are too far from me. So I'm sorry. I had to go start my own arcade. And what took me so long to get to the point where I'm going to turn this into my own business, I was always thinking about this, was where I ended up actually getting deployed for the Army. So that literally put the kibosh all my plans for an entire year because I had to wait till I got back. And then I was like, okay, what was I doing? Oh yeah, I was trying to get some Killer Queen cabinets for me and my buds, and start an arcade business. So
Yeah, I mean it's nice that you were finally able to do it and you've got it going and there's starting to be some momentum again. Um, yeah, I mean that's kind of everything that I wanted to talk to you about. I really just wanted to get you back on here and update everybody as to what's going on with Danger Zone and hear what's going on your side. So I guess all that's left is just throw out your social medias so people can check you guys out. And anybody in your area definitely needs to go check this spot out so you can play all these games that I don't think really anywhere else in Arizona has anything but Killer Queen, if I'm not wrong.
yeah, I think well, and right now I think I'm the only. No, I take that back. There's one other location. It's not a barcade, but there's one other location in downtown Tempe over by ASU that has Killer Queen cabinets. I think it's fairly new and just recently opened. But as far as majority of not only the limited edition pins I have, but yeah, like you said, Death Balls, Battlegrounds, Cosmotrons, and even that Pong cabinet. I'm definitely the only one that has that. So I have the most unique lineup, that's for sure. And if someone else has it, I at least have the better version of it. So I try to compete with that, and that's my niche. But yeah, so you can look us up on Facebook. It's Dangerzone Arcade, Instagram, Dangerzone Bar, website, www.dangerzonearcade.com, and I think that's it. Yeah, and you can also follow Uncle Bear's Brewery, Taproom, and Yard on Facebook as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to throw all those links down in the description so you guys can check them out. Jordan, thank you for coming back on and talking about Danger Zone and everything you guys have going on. If you guys like what we're doing here at Indie Arcade Wave, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow, as well as we did launch our Patreon, which helps us just improve the quality of our videos and our streams. So I guess that wraps everything up. And until next time, peace.
Thank you.